This podcast is a member of WildGamesProductions.com and D20Radio.com.
I'm Chuck Norris, and I approve this game.
Between the time when gamers played with miniatures and chainmail and the rise of the Wizards of the Coast, there was an age of advanced role-playing undreamed of. And onto the Skygax, destined to bear the jeweled crown of TSR upon a troubled brow, it was given to teach us all how to roll for initiative.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Okay, the Roll for Initiative podcast, volume number 3, issue number 127. DM Vince sitting here with DM Matt.
Hello, everyone.
DM Nick.
Hey there.
And DM Chad.
Yo.
We're back for another wonderful edition of our show after our I don't think we had a little hiatus, probably about a week, right, Matt?
Right, yeah, it was just like a little hiatus, but
we cleared out the mailbag, and then we went on our Memorial Day vacation, pretty much, and then came back.
Yeah,
yes, pretty much.
So let's jump right into things. News. We have a new podcast on our network, and yes, I'm doing it. Haha. The Chant of Light podcast. It's a Dragon Age only RPG podcast by Green Ronin, who produces the Dragon Age podcast. You can find it at chantoflight.com. The first 2 episodes are up, and you can join myself, my co-host Alex, and Mindy as we explore through Dragon Age for you. So there you have it. You can find that on Twitter. Yeah, you can find us on Twitter. Find us on G+, or you can find us on iTunes, or go to osrgaming.org. Chad, you had some news you want to give us today?
Yeah, just a couple of conventions I wanted to mention to those of you looking for conventions. The Dead Game Society is going to be heavily involved with the new Nexus Game Fair in Milwaukee on going from June 19th to the 22nd, and their official kickoff for registration begins today, October 6th. In addition to that, Michael, Colin, and myself will be representing the Dead Game Society at the end of this month at the Gamehole Convention in Madison, Wisconsin, which takes place from November 1st to the 3rd, and much fun will be had. So we hope to see you at either one of these.
Yeah, and Dead Game Society Texas chapter. I'm going to be demoing Marvel superheroes this weekend for a bunch of new people.
Ooh, fun.
So yeah, hopefully get some more people involved playing some old games. And lots of wild and crazy stuff happening.
yes.
I guess that's it for
Nice.
yeah, let's head into some sage advice.
Sage advice.
Sage advice this week. We have a bunch of emails, even though we cleared out the email bag, but we still have a bunch more.
Yeah.
Because you guys love us so much.
We appreciate it. You can write us at rfistaff@gmail.com or give us a voicemail at 570-865-4210, the hotline.
Yeah, and I actually have some additional information for email from last week when we were talking about dropping things on players of heavy weight. There's actually a rule for that in the DMG, hidden on page 64. It's
page 64.
Yes, it says
65 shall be outright.
Exactly. Yes, you shall take 1 point of damage per 14 pounds of weight per foot dropped when dropped between 10 feet and 60 feet. Anything over 60 feet is treated as 60 feet. Or you can just do 1d6 of damage per 14 pounds. So if dropping a 140-pound player on another player is 10d6.
So you're talking about the boulder damage.
Exactly. Just because it also, so just use the boulder damage for dropping like a cow on a player or other players.
Which is always a great practical joke.
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah.
I'd like to drop a moose on somebody. That would be fun.
Oh,
Right.
sorry.
Mooses are funny.
Yeah, so probably the most lethal weapon in the game is a fighter drop from 60 feet.
Mooses?
Yeah.
In full plate.
Yes. Yeah, in full plate, you could probably get that damage up to 20d6.
How about a cow in full plate?
Oh, a cow in full plate. We're probably looking at 40 to 50 d6.
A moose in full plate.
Ooh, yeah, we're talking We're talking Shadowrun levels of d6 here at that point.
Awesome.
Shadowrun. We're talking D10 equivalent of Vampire the Masquerade.
Yes.
What about a rogue Indian elephant with a great white shark on its back?
Oh,
That's
with friggin' laser beams on their foreheads.
yes.
Well, that would just be crazy.
Yeah, that's just crazy talk. But yes, it would probably squash your entire party several times over.
The laser beams alone would probably kill them.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Yep.
Anyway, rfistaff@gmail.com is our email address. We do have some emails here, and I'm going to pull them out here and read them. Hello, esteemed Dungeon Masters. I have a simple question for you. Do all magic swords and daggers glow upon command? What is your experience with this? Thanks, David D. No, they do not. No, I have no experience. No. Okay. They my games, they don't glow at all unless there's some type of ability that says with it swords have a light ability or glow ability. Otherwise, no. What about you, Chad? What do you have to say?
I agree with what you're saying. Generally speaking, magic swords listed in the Dungeon Master's Guide do list if they glow, such as the Holy Avengers. But, that said, there's also special purposes and special purpose powers for swords. So you could have a sword that special purpose is to kill orcs, and it glows in the presence of orcs, a la Sting from The Hobbit.
Yeah, it's your campaign. Do what you want. If you want swords to glow a light blue, light purple, whatever, then that's what you do. Nick, what about your games?
We don't use swords. We use toothpicks.
Oh, that's right. You use only blunt weapons because that's all clerics can use, right?
Are you playing Mouse Guard?
Yes, I'm playing Mouse Guard now. No, I think I've always remembered playing it to where like most of them like glow at a 10-foot radius, or if it's not 10-foot radius, I thought it was like at least as torch. I think a torch is 30 feet, but I mean it really depends on the campaign. I mean some of them they don't normally glow like a flame tongue. Yeah, it glows, but it's a flame. So right. I just think it really depends on your campaign if you want. Now daggers. I don't recall having any magical daggers that glow. I only remembered like the swords glowing.
I've only ever seen swords glow in like the video games. That's it.
Yeah, and there's also the sword. I think it was in Castle Ravensloft, the one that, and they listed in
the Sun Sword.
Or at least one, yeah, the Sun Sword. I think they talk about it in the Unearthed Arcana as well.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, isn't that Thundar's sword?
Blah.
Well, Thundar's the one who eventually defeated Strahd, so there you go.
Yeah, exactly. His name was also Jander. Oh, no, sorry. That's...
Lords of Light!
Lords of Light!
Ride!
Ukla! Ride! All right, enough tangents, sorry.
That's 2 cents on this.
They don't glow in my world unless they actually have a power that would cause them to illuminate either flame, or perhaps they actually have like a light spell built into them. Maybe if it was a sort of like detecting something, like detect evil or something, where if you get close to it, it glows more and more, kind of like your ye old metal detector. But outside of that, no, they non-glowy here. They don't sparkle either.
So what if like the Red Skull had it and he was summoning Cthulhu? Would that make it glow?
No. It'd probably go black.
Hey, that said, Unholy Reavers do cast darkness.
Yeah.
So it'd be like an Unholy Reaver.
Maybe
it's an Unholy Reaver and an Avenger in the same room, you can have a strobe light.
Oh, AD&D rave. As they do battle.
There you go.
Anyway, let's go on to our next. Not sure how to respond to that. Hi, guys. I wanted to write in and ask if you can cover the rules for creating and interacting with sages, which appear on page 31 to 33 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Have you ever used these random tables to create a sage for your games? I have not, but creating the sage ahead of time in a totally random way fits my style as a DM. Any thoughts you have are appreciated. DM Kojo! He scored a goal, too. I've never used that chart.
Yeah.
Anyone else use that chart?
No, I've never used it, but yeah, now
Always
that,
wanted to.
Yeah, I know, that's my thing.
I've always wanted to as well.
My players never go
one
to
of those-
Sages, so it's like I never have the opportunity.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. A lot of, it's one of those things that you would think more players would take advantage of in big cities, and yet they seem to prefer blithely charging in unknowing.
Right.
To the magic
Yeah,
shop.
pretty much. Or like sending the thief to find out information. The thief dies,
Yeah.
which has happened.
But yeah, I
But
mean,
I'm-
it's
I'm
like
a
when I
little-
used to.
with-
Yeah, I was going to say it's like when I used to live in St. Louis. I lived down the road from the Anheuser-Busch brewery, and I always said I was going to go there, and I never did. Well, it's like I've always wanted to use the sage, but I never have.
You can go to the brewery?
Yeah, I didn't go actually. I always said next week.
Chad. Anyway. No, I've never
Turn
used
in your man card now.
Yeah.
No, and they give you free beer at the end of the tour.
Oh.
Anyway. So, Joe, we will go over this a little bit more in detail, maybe for a Dungeon Master rules section. We can go over this a little bit. But thank you for
Yeah,
bringing
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Good idea.
So, our next email comes from Lynn. Hey guys, I was wondering if you had any insight on the I3 to I5 campaign module. I noticed with many others that there is no full detailed map of the desert adventure. The only one I could find was about 2 inches by 3 inches. Obviously, I cannot run a game into the desert in my world that I am drawing if I cannot see what the desert looks like. Please help me. You guys are my only hope. And the forums, they're a little confusing. That's how he ends it. They're like a maze.
What was
That's the Desert of Desolation, right?
I've ran the Desert of Desolation actually, but I'm trying to remember now. What was the first part of the question again? He wanted a map.
He can only find a 2 inch by 3 inches of the Desert Adventure map.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there's also the continental map that comes, in the box set and all that. And it does show, albeit small, but it does show that region. I mean, the maps that they include in that module should be sufficient to do it unless they're trying to trek out into an even deeper portion further east. East. But for the portions that they're at least supposed to be going to in that adventure, I thought the maps did okay with it. I don't remember experiencing any inability to portray where they were from the maps.
I'm not a module runner, so I don't really know what he's talking about for that particular part.
I wonder if he's running the super module, they'll of all 3 of them together.
Yeah, and that's what I
instead
ran.
of the separate modules.
Maybe that's what he's saying, because he's saying I3 to I5 campaign module.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the whole thing together, the whole Desert of Desolation series.
Yeah, and that's called the Desert of Desolation. And it's got the grinning skeleton and Egyptian pharaoh garb on the front of it.
He noticed that there's no full detailed map of the desert adventure, is what he's saying.
Right. So it sounds like what he's wanting is an actual map
Yeah.
of the entire Desert of Desolation. They don't really give you that because within that adventure, the idea, you have places you need to go within that adventure, like the Oasis of the White Palm.
Right.
Where you're supposed
And I believe that this.
What, Chad?
Oh, no, I was just saying for where you're supposed to go, it's covered. But yeah, if you wanted to literally take a caravan out across the Desert of Desolation and see it in its entirety, I don't believe they have that.
So
No,
just
I'm
make
not aware of either.
Yeah.
I'm looking at dndclassics.com, and they have the 3 separate modules. I3 Pharaoh, I4 Oasis of the White Palm, and I5 Lost Tomb of Martek. I guess if you wanted to, and they're $5 each. If you want to, download each one. Maybe they have better maps in them. I don't know.
Right, maybe because typically in the super modules, didn't they shrink down the maps a lot?
Yes, they did.
So
I know. I know they did in the Queen of Spiders. They did. They put them like in one little booklet.
Right, whereas in the individual modules, they would actually be in the cover and taking up basically two sheets of. So it'd probably be a nice blown up version. I'm looking through I3 right now, and there's a decent sized map of the desert wilderness there in the cover.
Yeah. It might be worth. What's his name? Lynn. Might be worth your if you want to spend the money. Go to dndclassics.com. They have all 3 separate modules. It might be worth it to spend, to have the better maps.
Right, and they do go into good detail in the modules about the desert, and they talk about its genesis, what it was prior to that. They talk about adventuring in the desert. So with what they give you, if you really wanted, I guess, the full detailed map, you might have to. That might be where you have to kind of be more creative on your own to come up with that. Maybe use maps of the Sahara. I don't know.
And I think the series itself was set to where it could be in any campaign setting. It wasn't to any one specific one, as far as I recall.
Well, it
So
does give histories on the Desert of Desolation as it pertains.
Right, but I mean, as far as the game world. Oh, really? So it is in World of Greyhawk.
Yeah, I believe it's Greyhawk. I may be wrong, but I thought it was.
So I thought it was.
It's been a while since I ran
a-
this adventure. I'd say it's been a few years since I ran it.
Yeah,
but I think it's in Greyhawk.
I don't.
Oh,
think
you know what? I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
it's
wrong.
not.
And here it is. I used it in Greyhawk, but it is Forgotten Realms. But yeah, there is that
It's
big
Forgotten Realms
map, and it does show the Desert of Desolation all the way, I believe, to the east of that map. There we go.
Oh, so that's where they plopped it in. They retconned it later on.
Right. So originally it wasn't in Forgotten Realms. They added it to Forgotten Realms. So.
I see.
Yeah. So
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have an answer.
Yeah. And then because it was retconned around the time of the Wilderness Survival Guide, so you could also use the Wilderness Survival Guide rules as well with that. Because isn't there, if they start wandering in areas off the map, isn't there a way to randomly generate what they actually wandered into?
Yeah, there is. There's random encounters that can take place in the desert.
Right. I was talking more about like the actual terrain.
Well, yeah, they also talk about the terrain.
Terrain.
Okay. Yeah. Like when because I know I've seen it somewhere. I'm just drawing a complete blank of where it was. But like if your party ventures off your map, there's a way to actually, you're in this type of terrain. You roll on this chart, and it'll tell you what type of terrain they wandered into.
Yeah, I think they do. I'd have to dig up my old copy and look at it again.
All right. Well, we'll research this a little bit and find out more if we can in the future.
But yeah, you know what? The Desert of Desolation and just desert roleplay in general would make an interesting show.
Oh, I found what I was talking about. It's the random wilderness terrain in the DMG Appendix B is what I was talking about.
That book has everything.
Yes, it does. So yeah, if they start wandering in areas off the map, you could just use that chart to say, okay, now you come across this.
Ooh. Look at Gygax magazine number 2 at Luke Gygax's mini module adventure thing going on there. Let me pull that out for a second. It was called What was it called?
Actually, it's over on my bookshelf. I ran the championship round of that at GaryCon last year.
The Blighted Lands. He has some really good
Blighted Lands
for desert combat and movement and tactical movement. You can even just steal from there. It's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, use that too. Absolutely.
A quarter of a giant city of the map there you can use. So,
yeah, that adventure would be hand in glove with the Desert of Desolation series.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks, Lynn. Actually, his name is Linnistel because I actually didn't put his full name in there when I copy and pasted it, so I apologize. Sorry. Anyway, last email comes from Mike from the UK, a.k.a. Magic Carl. Hi, folks. I heard you briefly mention Dungeon Land and would love to hear about it in more detail through discussion or through Blackstone's Vault. I was brought into role-playing games through Noah Antwiler. Am I pronouncing that right? Antwiler. Country Monkey series. And one of the stories involved Dungeon Land. Even better, if you can somehow get him on the show to interview him, if that's possible. On a side note, you guys asked a while back for some original music to be made for the show. I am a songwriter-composer and would love to gladly make you some music without a charge. You've already given me hours of entertainment already. Just let me know what style you want, and I'll get onto it, Mike.
Well, if he's willing to do it for free, sign him up.
Yeah. I don't know what style we'll be looking for. Anything cheesy 80s,
rap.
yes?
Yeah.
Who said rap?
I like some gangster rap, please.
You can hang yourself now.
Yeah. Get out.
Yes, some like old 1988 like NWA.
Oh, jeez.
Some Eazy-E, Slick Rick.
Yeah,
Anything
like
on a
moonwalk
Casio
too.
keyboard would be great.
Yes.
Casio keyboard.
If I went to my parents, I think I have one. It's not
Nice.
even a full-size one. It was like one of the little $40 ones. That'd be amazing.
They were pretty cool.
Yeah.
All the cool kids had one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But regarding
And you have to
Dungeon
have
Land,
Yeah.
sorry, Nick. I was going to say
no, go
regarding
ahead.
Dungeon Land, it is a fun well, there are two of them, Beyond the Magic
Yeah,
Mirror, Dungeon Land.
Yeah, Land Beyond the Magic Mirror, yes.
I thought we reviewed Dungeon Land, didn't we?
I think we did talk about Dungeon Land, actually.
I thought we talked about both of them. Maybe it was a long time ago though.
Yeah, I could have sworn
But
back when Jason
those-
we did that.
I think so. But knowing those two modules, I remember getting those, and a little history behind them is, I think they're listed as EX1 and EX2, and they were originally like extension adventures, like sidetrack adventures from the original Castle Greyhawk campaign. And basically, if you remember, Chad, how the first one opens up like you're falling and you're falling and falling. Basically, somewhere along the lines in the original Castle Greyhawk, people fall into a pit, like an endless pit, and that's how you get sucked into quote unquote Dungeon Land.
Yeah, I do think I remember that, and I also remember the Mad Hatter throws out executioner hoods.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
and the king does a time stop.
Yeah.
I know.
And in the second module, you do meet a quasi deity from Greyhawk.
Cool.
You meet Merlin.
I was going to say Nerul, but
yeah,
we did that or not?
I'm searching for it, and I'm not finding it, even though it feels like we've talked about it. Maybe it was in like a Sage Advice or something, or let's see.
Maybe we can add it onto the list of reviews.
Yeah,
it's a nice set of adventures to do in between your serious campaign. I think, although it's very easy to die in Dungeon Land.
Yes, it is. There are some spell restrictions and magic item restrictions. It is, if you're familiar with like Queen of the Demon Web Pits and all those spell and magic item restrictions, the Dungeon Land is very similar in that respect. Maybe not as much, but yes, they are. Those sorts of things are there, and it's a cool sidetrack. At least in my opinion, it's a nice change of pace. So
I agree.
Cool. All right, so
maybe we'll look into maybe there will be a Blackstone's Vault on those. Who knows?
yes, Blackstone must work again.
Or we can review them in the show, like we did that one couple of modules we did.
Give Blackstone a check. Doesn't show up.
Hey, well, those checks don't bounce. That would be nice.
Well, they're rare rubber.
You can't pay in Monopoly money. Okay, you can't pay in steel pieces. How about that?
Well, Blackstone negotiated steel pieces. It's not my problem.
Well, then he's an idiot.
He needs a better agent.
Yes, Matt, you should have been his agent.
Yes, I should. But then it would cost the show more. So it doesn't.
When you have an OTUG being your agent, what are you going to do, right?
Well, Matt, you kind of got stuck editing the show, so I don't guess you didn't agent yourself that well.
No, not really, no.
Jason put the persuasion con on you there somehow.
Right. Like, oh, this doesn't seem like it'd be a lot of work. Little did I know.
Anyway, so that's our sage advice. rfistaff@gmail.com, 570-865-4210, the hotline. You can also hit us up on osrgaming.org, or you can find us on D20 Radio as well. And one of the fine podcasts is there as well, too. Let's head into some table manners.
Typical. Of all the evil creatures in the world, I had to find one with table manners.
What are you kidding me? I spent years cultivating the worst table manners on the planet.
Table manners.
And now we are in Table Manners, and we're actually going to respond to a request from our last show, and then talking about the fighter, the much maligned class that people seem to think is just rather simplistic. It smash things, and there's not a lot of customization or options for a player, when in reality there are. They're just not as mechanical always when you look at some of the other class. So we're going to be talking about fighters. When you look in the player's
sword jock.
Yeah, the sword jock. I mean, when you look at the amount of space devoted to it in the player's handbook, when compared to other classes, it's very, very tiny. It doesn't even get a half page.
No, it's very, very, very straight to the point, and the only major option for a fighter, but the rest of the fighter subclasses get it anyway, is the multi-attacks.
Right.
Hit dice creatures.
Right. So there's really not a lot of character creation choices.
But if you a creative
so
person...
what was that about the zero hit dice creatures?
Oh, where basically they get to make more attacks than your standard person against creatures of lesser hit die, and that is actually found at the end of the in the player's handbook on, I think it was like
page 40. No, it's not.
It was right after the Ranger.
Yeah, you know what? Hold on.
Yeah, because they
page
decided
25.
It's page 25.
Right.
And it's actually one thing to stipulate, though. It's not just lower hit dice. They have to be either zero-level humans and demi-humans, or creatures of less than 8-sided hit dice, which might beg the question, what about first-level magic users who are not 8 hit dice, but they're not zero-level either?
Right. So all of those creatures, a fighter gets 1 attack per level against those. So some of your cannon fodder, like when you start throwing hordes of kobolds and things of that nature, a 5th level fighter can slaughter them rather quickly. So that is one advantage of a fighter has, which actually makes sense.
That is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
It's an attack per level per hit dice creature under 0?
No, it's if you have a 10th level fighter and he takes a disliking to a school of magic, he could walk in and kill all 10 of the 0-level mage apprentices in one round, because he gets to attack 1 time per hit dice that he has.
Right, so it's 10 attacks, not 10 attacks per creature.
Well, I was only asking that question because that's a question that was posed to me, so
Right.
I wanted to clarify it on the show for somebody.
Yeah, I always played it as like, and I use it in my current Temple of Elemental Evil campaign. You know, we got guys who are playing, 6th level fighters, 7th level fighters, and they get 7 attacks against a whole bunch of goblins that they encountered. So
and it could be all against one creature. I mean, technically, a 10th level fighter could go up to one kobold and whack him 10 times.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. So they're great. Fighters are great room sweepers. You just send them in and they'll hack up the room, and you may not even have to do anything else if you have a high enough level fighter. But really, other than that, they're very basic, and they're hence why a lot of people say they're great for new players, because you don't have a lot of options when it comes to tactics and mechanical parts of the game. But where the fighter has probably the most flexibility is you get to have the ability to be kind of creative, because since they're such a blank slate, you can take them in any direction you want. Yeah, you could be the fighter and walks around in his full plate and goes in the room and wants to be a knight and all that, blah, blah, blah. Or you could be like, hey, more of the like sneaky con man, like, yeah, he's great with a sword. At the same time, he's kind of glib and he likes taking people's stuff and extorting people. Maybe he makes
Oh my gosh, that's funny. You mentioned it. I'm sorry, because I have a friend, Adam. He played a fighter, but he has always said, this guy I'm playing is probably the most thiefy fighter you're ever gonna find. So
Yeah.
he did that. He did it that way.
Right. I once played a fighter who he passed himself off as he's far away from home and has real nice and shiny blades and weapons and always perfectly coiffed at the same time. Though he passes himself off as nobility. At the same time, no, he's just like a poor farm boy who managed to get himself some shiny armor but really thinks he should be far more than what he is. So he basically lies about everything in order to keep up the facade and basically have people give him favors thinking he's a noble.
Yeah, or you can take your fighter and instead of using the charisma as a dump stat, put that as your highest stat and just make him a really big con man that can back himself up with his blade.
Exactly. I mean, there's or you could go fighter Dex, but instead of like wearing the bulky plate mail, maybe he prefers leather or a chain shirt, so that way he's more mobile and he can fully maximize his Dex.
Like a duelist.
Right. But you don't actually have to use any of the Unearthed Arcana or the additional classes from Dragon Magazine to accomplish that. You can accomplish those subclasses by just being a regular fighter and role-playing it. That's what people did before they existed in a supplemental manner.
Before the Unearthed Arcana came out, you didn't have Cavaliers and you didn't have Barbarians. You had fighters that came from barbaric lands or nobility.
Right. Maybe your fighter, he's a fighter yet doesn't really like to kill things or draw blood, so all he uses are blunt weapons.
I thought you were going to say, so maybe he's a bad fighter.
Yes. Right. He only strikes blows down to they get 1 hit point, and then he tries to talk you down.
Yeah, he only cuts you to the quick.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's just lots of different personalities you can give your fighter that will make him unique and make him different. And then you don't have to worry about, well, mechanically, it's not all that interesting. But you can give him such a personality that he's very interesting.
Talk to the DM. I mean, you can have your fighter become, like Chad said, there was no knights, there was no barbarians, so just why not make him a knight? Talk to your DM, be like, oh, I want my guy to be able to ride a horse really well, and we'll say in his background he liked to practice with a lance or a stick, and he became really good at it, and he started going to really tournaments, and there was this music from Queen playing in the background, and
yeah,
a movie, I'm sorry, and my name is Ulrich von, Liechtenstein.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, put him on the high seas and call him a pirate.
Right.
There you go. There's another way you could take the fighter. You could make him more like a swashbuckler, pirate kind of guy.
He's a musketeer.
Yeah.
Why not? You can do anything. The fighter is it's a very flexible class because it's not bogged down by all the mechanical wherewithals that the other classes have. Maybe you want to be from a primitive tribe and you actually ride like a giant boar as your mount as opposed to a horse. You're like a Beastmaster type.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Yeah.
You can do all of that.
Yep.
So,
while the fighter looks like it has no major options, you can make it whatever you want it to be, is the point.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I would say just, you should never pigeonhole the role of the simple soldier or mercenary to the fighter. He can be really, if you have a creative collaboration between player and GM, the fighter is probably, in my opinion, the most flexible class, even more so than the thief.
Yeah.
No joke. I had a player in my party who was so tired of just all the basic classes. He wanted something different. He took a fighter, and he named him after one of the WWF wrestlers from the 80s, and just wrestled every one of the creatures he found. He put him in tights.
Oh, that's cool.
And all he did was
Nice.
just the whole adventure. He would take him. People were like, I want a body slam, and he grabbed the creature and tried to body slam, and I had to make.
That's awesome.
Awesome. That sounds kind of like I played a monk once, and all he did was travel from town to town looking to prove himself in hand-to-hand combat.
Now that you mention it, I do recall the Rogues Gallery supplement, in the back where it has all the interesting personalities.
Yeah.
The very last one, I think his name is Valerian, and he's a fighter, but if you read about the character, he's kind of like a duelist, kind of swashbuckler. He uses a special sword called a Sword of Skewering, which is like a dueling sword, like
Right.
you would use in fencing, and he dresses kind of flamboyant.
Foppish.
Yes, he's a fighter class, but he's like a dueling musketeer in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so just think of the personality of your fighter in his background. That's how you make him stand out. Don't always go for, well, this sword will do the most damage or this armor will give me the most bonuses. No.
Going on the whole time through the adventure.
Right. Maybe you want a fighter who's like dual wields instead of using a shield. You can do that.
Sure.
Why not? I mean, you have lots of customization because there's so few limits really put on the class. So,
And if you're talking like things mechanically, just off the top of my head, if you use Unearthed Arcana, you got the specialization rules for fighters.
Right.
That's another way that they're a little more unique.
And
You can-
specialization, man, woo, that more than puts the fighter on the same rank as, say, a paladin, which
Yeah,
cannot
because you can-
specialize.
Right, because you can actually make that fighter like to the ultimate swordsman with a bastard sword,
right.
or the ultimate warrior with a battle axe.
Yeah.
Or, maybe you just want to go a little weird. It's like, you know what? I'm going to specialize in halberd, and just be like the best darn halberd user on the planet. And that's another way of doing it. If you're looking mechanically wise, that's
Right.
one way of doing it.
Could you?
Yeah, with specialization, one-on-one, a fighter is going to eat a paladin for breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
At a level at least.
By far.
Yeah.
And I do it at my campaign to make even fighters even more unique. I do it to where specialization is only to fighters. I don't allow rangers or
Yeah,
paladins.
in my game, I only allow rangers to specialize in the bow because, as I see it, if you're specializing as a fighter, has the time to do. Paladins have to pray half the day.
Yeah.
Rangers have to study wood lore, right? But
Right.
fighters have the time. They can put in the time to specialize in a weapon. Rangers, I allow them to specialize in a bow because I say, they spend a lot of time hunting, probably
Yeah,
with a bow.
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent. The fighter, they're the weapons masters. They're the ones who they're out there learning how to hone their skills, maybe with, if you want to, with specialization with one particular weapon, or if you just want to not go specialization, you learn all different types. That's one of the
Exactly.
cool things.
And not to mention the fact that when they do reach 9th level and are formally a lord,
Yeah.
they build their castle, they clear it so that it can be settled. They're the class that can start banking the money. The paladins have to tithe.
Right.
Yeah.
They're giving away most of their money. And the Rangers, well, they don't really build a city per se. If you want to be rich, ultimately, I mean, if your in-character goal is to have a lot of money, there's no class that's going to get rich easier than a fighter.
And plus with fighters, look of all the different magic items as far as what you can get. There's like no restriction to armor, no restrictions to weapons, like fighters or rangers. Like, yeah, rangers can use a wide variety of armor, but that there's a limited use when you into your rangers abilities, and paladins want the best armor possible. So
yeah,
there's a
not
lot
too
of
many
advantages
Rangers
to the
are
fighter.
moving silently in full plate mail through the woods.
No.
Nice. Cool. I think that's all we really can say about that.
Yeah, there's just lots of cool stuff to
Right.
do with the fighters. Not just
I love playing fighters.
Yeah, I do too. It's not just a vanilla stick jock, man. You
Right.
could do a whole bunch of stuff with them.
Yeah, and there's actually one other way you can also advance your fighters too. It's a optional note on in the DMG for fighters. Normally, a fighter every 2 levels they increase their to hit by like +2. So your level 1 to 2 fighter hits armor class 0 at a 20, 3 to 4 hits at an 18, 5 to 6 hits at a 16, and so on. But with this optional rule, for every even level, you add 1 to their to hit. So instead of going up by 2 every 2 levels, you go up by 1 every 1 level, kind of like later editions. So at second level, instead of hitting armor class 0 on a 20, you hit on a 19. At level 4, instead of hitting on an 18, you hit on a 17. So that's another way you could just add a little bit more to a fighter to just make them stand out a little when they're able to hit in combat a little bit better than their paladin or ranger brethren. Even though that rule can also apply to them as well, I would consider giving it more to the fighter only. Just another way to make them stand out.
I agree.
Yeah, and if you allow double specialization, forget about it. They actually become they become really powerful.
Nasty.
I actually don't allow it because it makes them. I mean, it makes them too powerful compared to all the other classes.
Yeah. But yeah, fighters, lots of options. You just have to think a little outside the box and not just get stuck by what's written in the rules. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So with that, I think we will head on into our creature feature.
Are you saying that I put an abnormal brain into a 7.5-foot long gorilla?
Creature Feature Theater.
It's alive! It's alive!
All right, everybody. We're going to do our creature feature, and this is one I've been waiting to do for a while. And we're going to talk about probably the most nasty of undead that's out there, the Lich. And to a lesser extent, the Demi-Lich. We're kind of put them both together.
And don't forget about the Draco Lich.
And the Draco Lich, too. So, yeah, you got a triple threat there.
Brother.
That's right, triple threat there, brother.
That's right.
Lich, Draco Lich, Demi-Lich. Look out. So, why don't you start off, Chad, and let's talk about what a Lich is and how they are made.
Yeah, well, the Lich is probably my favorite undead. They're just awesome. Vampires are pretty cool too, don't get me wrong, but Liches, they are the epitome of the undead. Okay, first off, a great article to read outside of the Monster Manual to find out about them is issue 26 of Dragon Magazine, written by Linda Kafka, and the article's entitled "Blueprint for a Lich." And it really gets into the nuts and bolts of the genesis of a Lich. So obviously liches were once powerful arch-magi. And I say arch-magi because they had to have been between 14th to 18th level at the time of their transformation or death. And most of the time they were 18th level.
Yeah, and if I recall, they could either be magic users or magic user clerics. So if they were
could
human,
be clerics, they could be straight clerics, but they had to get it that because of the spells required to make the transformation, they would have to hire or contract a high-level magic user to cast the right spells.
So they actually could be magic users, clerics, or magic user clerics, which probably would mean that at one point, who's ever that magic user cleric lich, he dual classed at one point.
Exactly.
If he was a human, and in my opinion, if it's a lich that's both magic user cleric, watch out, man.
He's gonna be tough.
He's got to be very tough.
About the only thing going for you if you have to face that combination of a lich would be the fact that he no longer really communes with his god anymore.
Yeah, he's probably maybe a little bit at odds with them. But anyway, talk about that article, I guess, that blueprint for a lich.
Yeah, well, one of the first things it does is it goes through what it takes to become a lich. It's kind of a so you want to be a lich. I would say
you want to be a lich. Okay.
Now you're a lich. No, actually, it's not easy becoming a lich. Lichen ain't easy. Sorry.
Lichen ain't easy. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
sounds like it's one of those instructional movies. How to be a lich. Now you're a lich. Now what do you do?
It's 1945 and the liches. Oh, sorry.
All right. Well, anyway, yeah, the first thing you got to do if you want to be a lich is you have to obviously have a certain number of specific spells prepared in advance, or at least known in advance. You need to know Magic Jar, Trap the Soul, and Enchant an Item. Along with these spells, you'll need to brew a particularly nasty potion, and the ingredients of which are really pretty funky. One of which is the corpse of an infant killed by a phase spider.
Yes, and I have something to mention about that later, but continue.
Okay. So say you have all your ingredients, right? And you have your spells already. And if you're a cleric, you already have somebody that you trust enough to perform these rituals that will make you a lich.
Or you paid and killed them afterwards.
And, well, of course, you don't really trust anybody at that point.
No, not at this point. You're pretty evil.
Yeah, that's pretty. Well, actually, though, there are some books that I've seen that actually talk about being a lawful good lich. I'm not really sure I'm with it, but okay, it's your game. You can do it if you want. But anyway, okay, so you have the spells, you have the potion. Now you need a phylactery or a jar. All right. And you need to be, you really have to think about what you're going to use to do this. First off, it's going to be made of the highest quality material, which can't be wood. And the value of this item will never be less than 2,000 gold pieces. And it needs to be something that you can probably hide easily and is durable, like diamond, for instance.
Right.
Because it's going to hold your soul.
Right.
Now, once you have decided upon the item, you need to cast or have somebody cast enchant item upon it, at which time it will then it will make a save based on your own level or the person casting the spell. Should that be successful, then the jar has Trap the Soul cast upon it with a chance of success equal to 50% plus 6% per level of the magic user or cleric casting the magic user cleric or whatever over 11th level. Okay, I'll roll a double aught, always indicating failure. Now, assuming everything has been successful up to this point and the jar proves to be soul receptive, the prepared candidate for lichdom either casts or has cast Magic Jar on it, at which point the one seeking lichdom can actually enter their soul into the phylactery. You're still not a lich, though, yet.
Oh,
Upon
no.
entering the jar, there's more.
Oh, yeah, it gets even better.
Oh, yeah. The newly transformed Lich automatically loses 1 level right off the bat with the corresponding hit points. And at this point, his remaining hit points as well as his soul are now stored within the jar. But he must then return to his own body to rest 2 to 7 days because the toll placed upon him in doing all of this is such that he immediately loses his top 3 level spells, which do not come back until he rests the appropriate amount of time and then goes back to reading or prayers to regain those spells. But congratulations, because by this point, actual lichdom has been achieved, and now the fun really starts.
Yes. Let's hope that your body's around.
Exactly. And, one thing I do want to mention, and then I think, Nick, you may actually have some information that differs from it, but it's just kind of interesting. When you do prepare this potion, you're going to need arsenic, belladonna. You need fresh phase spider venom, under 30 days old, of course. You'll also need the blood of a dead humanoid infant killed by a phase spider and the blood. Yeah.
Now, there is a difference.
Okay.
Yes. That you mentioned in the Best of Dragon Volume 2, they took that out where it said the blood of a dead humanoid infant killed by a phase spider. They changed that.
Oh, where'd they change it to?
They just said the blood of a humanoid killed by a phase spider.
I have a feeling they figured it was a little un-PC.
Yeah.
Maybe. But there's one other one that you'll come up about the wyvern venom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That one was changed too.
Yeah. The heart of a virgin humanoid killed by wyvern venom.
Yeah, that one they just changed to the heart of a humanoid killed by wyvern venom in the Best of Dragon Volume 2 article. I noticed those 2 things, and I'm like, that's interesting.
That's an interesting edit.
Yes. I'm like,
but now does Best of Dragon also go over the side effects of drinking this potion?
Yeah, it talks about the very end. Yes, what happens that might happen to you. Yes.
Yeah, you roll a D100, and depending on what you roll, there could be multiple effects. For one thing, it might not work.
Right.
But even when it does work, the best thing that can happen is you go into a coma for 2 to 7 days, and the potion works.
Yes.
Or this one I love. Permanently deaf, dumb, and blind, only a full wish can regain the sense. Hey, but the potion worked.
Yeah. Yay!
Welcome to an eternity of being deaf, dumb, and blind.
Yeah.
But now that would be an interesting lich to do battle with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be kind of like hitting a wooden post that never falls down.
Yes.
Hey, Nick, what
Yep.
year was the Best of Dragon copyrighted? That number 2 yet?
That is 1981.
Okay.
So it was right around the whole controversy surrounding D&D. So I'm assuming that's why they might have changed it. You know?
I don't know. 81, they might not have just yet because it kind of just started then. So,
well, there was that whole Dallas affair in '79, which
yeah.
But I mean, they edited that out. They also took out the thing about the was it the percentile chance for the trap the soul? It's not in the Best of Dragon version. For some reason, that was left out for the. When he said trap the soul has a chance to work equal to 50% plus 6% per level. Yeah, they took that out for some reason. I don't know why.
Probably the same reasons.
I don't know. It just seemed kind of odd. It just seemed like a game mechanic thing,
Yeah. But
Trap the Soul is in there. They just don't mention what the percentage chance is.
Something that probably asked Tim Kask.
I don't know.
Yeah, and 1981 was when the novel Mazes and Monsters was released, so yeah.
Okay.
That would be why.
But there's also some other cool things, like if the next time that the character dies who becomes a lich, no matter what happens, you can go into the jar, and it doesn't matter how far away. I mean, cubes of force, prismatic spheres, lead boxes. you could just get right to the jar.
Cool.
But this is where the tough thing happens. To get out again of the jar, the magic user cleric must have his or another recently dead body within 90 feet of the jar. So hopefully your body is close by. If not, it could be anything from like a mouse to a Kyrin. So, that would be interesting, huh?
Aha, I've got my power back. I'm a mouse, damn it.
Yes. Now the corpse, the corpse must fail its saving throw versus magic to be possessed.
Ooh.
And the saving throw is to have 1/2 the hit dice figure of the normal man, animal, or small monster, etc., regardless of alignment. If the figure had 3 fewer hit dice in life, it had 4 or more, it gains one of the following saving throws according to alignment. There's a list of all the different alignment adjustments. And the corpse cannot be dead longer than 30 days. If it makes the saving throw, it will not receive the lich ever.
But you know what? That's interesting because, what I like to say, if you died here, you'd already be home.
Yeah.
But that's why you keep your, you keep your corpse close by the phylactery. But if you can't, some liches are too smart for their own good when it comes to hiding their phylactery, because say you hide your phylactery in a place that no one can ever encounter it. Well, nobody will ever destroy your soul. But the downside, what happens if your body's not close by? You have no supply of other corpses which you can inhabit. I mean, or it may be. I mean, we're saying that if you put your phylactery in a place not even a mouse is, you're going to go stir crazy mad, just like a certain demi-lich in Tomb of Horrors.
Yeah, basically what happens is, whatever body that you get into, if it's not your own, the lich is acting essentially as a white. And that whitish body will seek out its original one. And,
exactly. Assuming, of course, there's a body nearby to possess.
Right. When that whitish body is, when that lich's soul possesses that whitish body, it's out looking for its original body. And if I remember, if it finds the original body, it will then eat the old body after one. Yes, it will eat them after 1 week, will metamorphosize into the humanoid body similar to the lich's original.
Exactly. And one other thing to remember, too. Say you did put some fresh bodies around your phylactery in case you ever needed a spare body. Part of what you were just saying, Nick, is how long can those bodies be dead before you cannot use them? Right.
It's 30 days.
Exactly.
No longer than
so
30
you
days.
Better have some way of getting fresh bodies or cadavers.
And that's why liches have minions.
Exactly. And you know what? Here's the other thing. While nothing can stop you from hitting your phylactery, and only a disintegrate spell, by the way, can destroy the actual body of the lich, every time you go back to your phylactery, you lose 1 level of experience or hit dice.
Yep, you sure do.
And go under 10, guess what happens?
You're permanently dead.
Welcome to the true death.
That's right.
So liches want to be as much as possible outside of their phylactery whenever possible. I mean, because, if possible, they want to be in their actual body, because even when they're animating a substitute body, their power is much diminished. I don't think they can ever get it higher than 4th level in somebody's body.
Right, that's correct. And that's why they're essentially, the body is like as a white.
Exactly, without the ability to level drain.
Right.
Yeah, so it pays to keep your body nearby, and it pays to stay in that body and only use your phylactery when you absolutely have to.
And this is probably where we're going into next is, so you have a NPC who's a lich. Now, how do you use them in a campaign? Well, given all those things that a lich has to go through and maintain his lichdom, there are probably certain creatures or other things that you use in order for you to get those bodies that you need each time you die, and maybe some certain types of monsters that you use in getting those things. Off the top of my head, I would think if being a lich, you would probably want to use creatures that are relatively easy to control. Maybe zombies. Ghouls would be really good for that. So I can imagine, using zombies, ghouls, maybe even skeletons to grab bodies that you need.
Yeah, or you could use, say, a wraith who could possess a body and bring it to you.
There you go. That's another good way. And what a real nasty encounter, a wraith.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine a lich who has wraiths, ghouls, and gas working for him?
And maybe even golems, too. High enough level. I mean, you're talking anywhere between 14th and 18th level of various either cleric or magic user cleric or whatever. I could see them making, maybe using clay golems or flesh golems to go out and get bodies for you.
Ooh, that'd be really nasty. A high-level cleric lich or magic user cleric lich that's creating clay golems.
Going out and getting bodies for...
or even just guarding its phylactery, too.
Right? Exactly. A dual-purpose creature, not only getting the bodies, but also protecting the phylactery.
Exactly. And could you put the phylactery inside the clay golem?
Ooh. Oh, I like where you're going. You're devious. I like it.
Yeah, now you have a mobile phylactery.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And
it's a lot more powerful than fourth hit dice.
Yeah, and very, very well protected. I mean, right inside a golem. I could see the beginnings of a campaign right there. Very interesting.
Check this one out, though. This will twist your mind a little bit. What about a lich that rules a city?
Mm-hmm.
And you could do it because, first of all, make inroads with the local thieves guild. They're stealing cadavers from you from the riverfront all the time. Second, Robert the Bruce in real life, and in the movie Braveheart, they showed his father with leprosy. But I think in real history, it was he who is suspected of having died from leprosy. Near the end of his reign, they didn't see him very much,
right?
Which is one reason why they think he had leprosy. How about a lich that, as its body decays, it hides under the lie of leprosy and still runs its kingdom? Because liches tend to be lawful alignment, I believe.
They can be lawful evil or chaotic evil. In the DM in the monster manual, they have them listed as neutral with evil in parentheses. So I think they could be like almost any evil alignment.
Yeah, I would love to have a lawful evil lich. Because remember, lawful evil actually can make an effective ruler. I mean, they're iron-fisted, but low crime. Not the crime that they don't want, that is. But if you had a powerful lawful evil lich ruling a city, he would have no problem getting bodies. The crown jewels could actually be his phylactery.
There you go.
It leads to some interesting paths.
Right. And taking all this into mind, you could see a lifetime of a lich go by. A high-powered, say, we'll use our magic user / cleric guy as an example. Finds the particular incantations, goes on his own personal quest maybe to get the bits and pieces of his potion, becomes a lich, designs a complex for himself for his body, being held up with lots of traps, maybe puts out word of like a false tomb for himself, and over hundreds of years he just inside his own particular tomb, and he becomes something more than just a regular lich. Eventually his body decays and his spirit goes on to the other planes of existence and becomes what is known as the demi-lich. And I'm kind of alluding to the demi-lich Acererak in the Tomb of Horrors. And that's what basically happened with Acererak. And if you kind of think about it, in a way, now the tomb makes sense at how it is set up. I mean, it was maybe he did have some minions or whatever. Either they were killed or they abandoned the tomb, whatever. Because there's not a whole lot of, monster encounters in the Tomb of Horrors.
The Tomb of Horrors has very few actual creature encounters, and this is a great, the more you think about the setup for this adventure, the more I'm reminded that, or the more I think that Asarak outwitted himself and went crazy.
He did. I mean, maybe he did over all those hundreds of years, just, he did go insane. And
his paranoia led him to create a lair full of traps that would allow nobody to get close to him. Well, guess what? Nobody can get close to him. His body ultimately decayed to where it's not of great material use, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And he can't get any fresh bodies because he put himself in the middle of the ultimate trapped lair.
Yes. And in doing so, becoming that creature, the Demi-Lich, he's probably even more nasty than a regular Lich.
He's got to be screaming mad. Yeah,
and just the simple fact how a Demi-Lich, what you have to do to destroy one is a monumental task in itself.
Yeah, so, their powers are just crazy. Their howl doesn't cause fear; it causes death.
Death, yeah. And they're listed as hit dice, 50 hit points, and special, which means, yes, they have 50 hit points, but look what you have to do to destroy the Demi-Lich like Asarak. A shatter spell cast upon its skull, where I guess some of the let me get back to the Demi-Lich. The only thing that's really left of him is maybe a skull, some bones, and a bunch of dust.
Exactly.
If you disturb that skull and bones and dust, the skull lifts up and does some really nasty things, like possibly trapping your soul in one of the gems in the skull. So you can use a shatter spell, which will do 3 to 18 points of damage on the skull. Power word kill from the astral or ethereal planes will destroy it. This one I love. A fighter or ranger with a Vorpal blade, sword or sharpness, sword +5 or Vorpal weapon. A paladin with a Vorpal weapon or a paladin with a +4 better weapon inflict full normal damage upon the skull. Yeah.
Yeah, because tough. Every paladin's got one of those. Yeah, it's very difficult, and they're basically looking for the most powerful person in the party.
Here's the sick thing about trying to destroy the thing. A Mace of Disruption, very powerful weapon against undead.
Very underestimated, and in my opinion, better than the Avenger.
Right. Mace of Disruption, how much damage you do to a Demi-Lich skull? 1 point. That's it. 1 point of damage per hit. Or any character with a +4 or better magic weapon will do 1 point of damage per hit. That's it.
Oh, wow.
Dispel Evil will do 5 to 8 points of damage. Holy Word pronounced against it inflicts 5 to 30 points of damage. So, yeah, Demi-Liches are even more nasty than the regular Lich.
And I got one Demi-Lich.
In a sense, yeah.
Well, I was going to say there's one Demi-Lich that might even outrank Asarak, and that's Vecna. And technically, you could call him a Demi-Lich because after he was destroyed by his erstwhile servant / bodyguard Kaz, whose own sword is an artifact, the Sword of Kaz, he was left with only his left hand. And, that's the thing. I think it's hard to understand. I never understand if it's just his left eye and left hand that survived or if he lost his left hand and left eye and is seeking it, because that's the thing with liches also. They seek their full body until they have it all gathered again. I never did really get down to I'm thinking it's only his left eye and left hand that's left.
Yeah, I got that impression too. And with Vecna and even later on in the game, how the whole legend of Vecna gets all wrapped up where he's like becoming a demigod and everything.
Yeah, I never really got into that one. But
I never really got into that, but I always liked the kind of mystery around Vecna just between those two items in the DMG.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
and Cause
who
is
was
always been
Vecna?
one I like too. The whole dynamic
Yeah,
of
and
this
I think
powerful mage who gets murdered by his own evil bodyguard.
And I think they kind of elaborated further on that Koss was a vampire. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think later on they show him to be a vampire, which I suppose could work.
And and you know what? I kind of like that angle because I'm thinking, you know, who would be if there was an enemy to liches, I would think vampires would be probably their closest enemy.
Could be.
At least in my
It depends on the vampire because, again, vampires and liches are not like your average creature. They're more individual.
That's
so,
what I mean.
you know, although I think, what if Kaz was a Death Knight, which is a variant of the lich?
That's true. He could have been. I've kind of had this idea that if there was two creatures that were vying for power in the world, I would think that liches and vampires would probably be ones that would be opposed to each other. I don't think they would work together. You know?
Yeah, I can actually, I agree because they both. You're talking about two very powerful egos, two big egos in the room.
Yes. Yeah, one is, I mean, they both have an essentially everlasting life. One gets it from, you know, sucking the blood and the, you know, in D&D terms, life points, while the other one is just trying to, you know, build up more power in that respect. But,
which one is the vampire?
Yeah, right. Exactly. You know, but I could almost, you can maybe even make a kind of a campaign to where you have a lich in one area and maybe a vampire encroaching on that in that lich's area. And maybe they have like this, I don't know, maybe between their minions, they have some sort of clandestine war between each other.
Sure.
You know?
What if you had Strahd versus, say, I don't know, Strahd versus Vecna?
Yeah. You know,
you'd have to bump up Strahd quite a bit, but for that matter, you could just do Vecna versus Kaz.
But even then, you could probably design. I mean, you know, what we were talking about, like for at least vampires, like Strahd, he had magic using abilities. I mean, why not give those to vampires too? I mean, maybe at one point they were magic users.
Oh yeah, I always give my. It depends. Again, this is where it gets into the whole vampires are individuals. Some vampires were sorcerers, and if they were, they definitely cast spells.
Right. So their path to immortality was the vampiric way versus the lich's way, which is through just a different route. And if I remember correctly, one of the ingredients for becoming a lich is 1 quart of blood from a vampire or a person infected with vampirism.
And what if your lich gained his lichdom by chaining a vampire down and taking 1/4 of his blood?
Yeah.
That vampire would not be happy with you afterwards.
And he wants revenge on that lich. So they have this, you know, this dark war between these two, and your adventuring party is caught in between because they're causing all havoc throughout the land. And I would even make it to a point where you might have to, the adventuring party might have to make a choice of, like, maybe the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
exactly.
That sort of angle. It's like,
yeah, definitely.
You might have to side with either the Lich or the vampire.
Right. or
something like that.
Yeah, or what if a vampire lord caught wind of a magic user that was in the process of becoming a lich and seeking the items to, and this magic user actually sent the players out to retrieve said items.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're fighting vampires, not realizing they're also fueling a lich.
Right.
Here's another idea. What if one of your players in a high-level game wanted to achieve lichdom? Because I played in games where evil characters were, obviously. And to do so, they need to get that cord of blood, and a local vampire, either a botched attempt on him or he gets wind of it somehow. But in the end, he promises power. He tells the character, serve him, do some favors for him, and he'll get that blood. But then maybe he double crosses the mage. Yeah, different angles. And that's an angle you could use the whole how to become a lich.
Lich, yeah. You can have a whole campaign around it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and one more. Don't forget Asbardes from Descent into the Depths of the Earth.
Yeah, I think it was the only published module that I know of where a lich is one of the listed encounters. And
yeah, he's an encounter.
And Descent into the Depths of the Earth. What a heck of an encounter, too.
Yes. In Origins this last year, actually, I turned Asbardes into, because I did in 3 parts, and Asbardes was the big baddie in Descent to the Depths of the Earth for the first session that I ran.
I always just found it odd that using just a lich as an encounter in the whole thing. I mean, come on, it's a lich, dude. It's not.
And you go into a room. If you turn to your left, you'll face 10 orcs. But if you go to your right, you'll face a lich.
Yeah. Wow. Talk about bad choice.
He chose wrong.
Poor.
He chose poorly. That's why we always go left when we go into the dungeon. So there you have it, I think. The lich, how one is made, maybe how to use them, and some really cool campaign ideas, and some examples that were of liches and demi-liches in D&D. So,
yeah, agreed.
Some really good stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess that'll wrap up the show this week then.
Aw.
Say
it ain't so.
No, it's so. I'm sorry for walking. We have to go.
Oh, no, it's not. It's crazy. Wow.
And that should be required once per episode of Christopher Walker reference somehow.
Christopher Walker would make a great vampire.
No, he would.
Make a great vampire. No. Be a lich.
Looks like a lich.
Yeah, it kind of does.
He's already on the path to being a lich.
He's already path to lichdom. He's already kind of crazy and...
Yeah. Maybe he rolled wrong on that percentile table.
Maybe.
So I guess let's keep it original and keep it old school. And good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Initiative Podcast is a production of Wild Games Productions in association with D20Radio.com. You can visit us at RFIPodcast.com or contact us on our forums at OSRGaming.org or even by calling us at 570-865-4210. This podcast is produced for entertainment purposes only. All other uses are prohibited. And remember, if your magic missile spell doesn't automatically hit, you're playing the wrong edition. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative.